The world is drastically changing, with a growing human population and an increase in demand on our planet for resources. As a result, some of our most iconic and charismatic animals are endangered. The great apes are among these. Orangutans are now only found in the jungles of Indonesia and Malaysia. Meanwhile, chimpanzees are native to sub-Saharan Africa and particularly Uganda. These species face not only a changing environment, but the threat of diseases. These include Ebola, polio, influenza, tuberculosis, and other respiratory diseases. The great apes aren't the only species to be threatened by disease. In the UK, red squirrel numbers are rapidly declining as a result of the squirrel pox virus, which is fatal and has led to a complete loss of red squirrels in many regions. There are many conservation efforts to preserve and protect the biodiversity of our planet. In great apes, studies have been carried out to compare the social networks, the relationships and interactions between individuals in groups of chimpanzees and orangutans in order to predict the threat of disease. These two species interact very differently with others. Orangutans are characteristically more solitary, living alone or with one other individual. Alternatively, chimpanzees are very sociable, spending lots of time in groups with others. Both species show fluid social organisation, meaning group sizes can change. For example, individuals may sleep together, but split off at other times to find food. The amount of time spent with other individuals and the number of individuals within the group can affect the risk of disease transmission. Chimpanzees have increased social interactions, and therefore disease rates have varied between 20 and 98%, whereas chimpanzees have no recorded epidemics. There is also the risk of disease from human transmission to consider. This is common in zoos and a key thought to conservation. However, it's thought these diseases would still be prevalent without human interference. Patterns of disease are affected by social organisation. How many individuals live together? How long do they spend in these groups? Transition mode. Is the disease airborne, spread by direct contact? Infectiousness. How easily does it spread? Ebola, for example, is highly infectious, with an infection period of 10 days. Whereas tuberculosis is less infectious, with a longer period. And recovery time. Can a species recover from an epidemic and still reproduce? We use this information to create strategies to respond to and prevent epidemics. Social networks were studied to predict disease spread, focusing on disease transmitted through close proximity, such as respiratory diseases. Models were formed based on the number of individuals in a certain area. Individuals were classified as either susceptible, infected, or recovered. It starts with patient 0, who is infected, while all other individuals are susceptible. Each time at least one individual became infected. The model was changed to consider the infectiousness of the disease and the social interactions within the groups. After individuals became infected, they would then be classified as recovered. This time was dependent on the type of disease. Individuals classified as recovered were no longer part of the network, so couldn't pass on the disease. This includes individuals that had died from the disease or had recovered. The model was run until no susceptible individuals remained. The infectiousness of the disease wasn't found to have such a large impact, but social interactions had a bigger effect. Associations between the orangutan social networks and disease spread were concluded irrelevant, regardless of disease type. It was impossible to predict the threat of disease based on it. Their limited social interactions resulted in less epidemics in comparison to chimpanzees. Chimpanzees were found to be more vulnerable to disease, and highly infectious diseases spread to almost all individuals. Chimpanzees were found to be more social with a larger social network, and are more likely to be infected by disease. Conservation efforts must be focused on preventing disease entering communities of chimpanzees, as it spreads easily, as well as understanding the spread of respiratory diseases. There should be a focus on zoos, wildlife parks, and sanctuaries to prevent human transmission, for example, by enforcing strict hygiene measures. As chimpanzees are more vulnerable to diseases, conservation efforts must adapt to this, to prevent these species becoming lost from our planet indefinitely.